Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. This show, as always, is brought to you by TrackTune, and you'll be hearing and seeing more about TrackTune over the course of this show. It is great to be back on PowerTube and really excited about our guest this evening. This is going to be a fun story. Ryan Shehan is one of the USA's top up-and-coming open-wheel racers. He has an impressive resume of wins and accomplishments on track, but his story of recovery from a life-threatening crash to become an insurance agent, an entrepreneur, and to climb back to victory lane is one that we can all be inspired by. We'd like to bring him on. Ryan is from Texas and is coming up the open wheel ranks, and he's made a decision about 2025 that I think is noteworthy, and we'll get to that in due course. Ryan Shehan, welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It's great to have you on.
Tom, thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I want to jump all the way back to the very beginning because I've heard this story, but I want you to tell it to our audience. Tell us how you got started in racing. How old were you when you got interested in the sport? And talk a little bit about how you actually got started driving.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, which I think to motorsports fans is most known for COTA, the home of the US GP. So I just started going out there for sports car races, eventually F1, just going to races with my family, and I guess just got exposed enough to start falling in love with it. So at the age of 9, I asked my dad to, I want to be a race car driver. And he said, okay, how do you do that? And so told me, go research, don't come back in 2 hours. It should take you a couple of days. So, took a couple of days as people do, went and Googled it. And it turned out go-karting was the first step for all the the biggest racers in the world. So started go-karting when I was 9.
Well, now what did you put in Google? How do you become a race car driver?
I probably looked how do you start racing, how to become a race car driver, and pretty much everything you look at will tell you starting go-karts.
Yeah, that's certainly one of a couple different ways you can do it for sure. Now you signed a contract with Trackside Karting and ComKart for J3 competition, and that's early on here. Can you tell us about your first few years and what does that mean that you signed a contract so early?
Yeah, I was it kind of been. I wouldn't say it started off as just fun, but I think obviously when you first start off, you're maybe not fully expecting it to turn into a professional thing or something like that. I always wanted to be a racing driver, but it was, it's far-fetched when you first start. But I think that, we started to move up and do state level stuff, eventually regional, and we eventually got to national stuff. But I think that was kind of the first moment where I was like, okay, this can be kind of serious, because I kind of got noticed by one of the kart manufacturers.
Yeah,
I'd done well enough. The team I was racing with in Texas was a dealer for them, and so I'd spent a year driving that kart, did well enough, and got noticed. So that was kind of an aha moment. Like, okay, that went pretty well, and now I'm getting noticed a bit.
I mean, that's within your first few years of racing. What was the actual on track like for you? How quickly did you pick it up?
I think fairly quickly. I started at the end of 2014, and by 2017, I was doing my first national race. So I did about 1 year of local, 1 year of state regional stuff, and then got to the national level. So I think relatively quickly. I've seen people go faster, I've seen people go slower, but I think I we kept it pretty manageable. Obviously, we didn't want to jump straight into the deep end and kind of maybe, deter me from wanting to do it or something like that. But I think our pace was pretty good.
So you went, you qualified fourth in 2019 and finished ninth out of 84 in your first race in Europe. So you started in 2014 at 9. So by about, 14 or so, you were racing in Europe. What was that like to actually go outside the country? Because karting in Europe, out and anywhere really outside the US and a lot of these countries, is way more intense and way bigger of a deal than it is here in the US.
Yeah, I won a ticket doing a race here in the States. I won like a free entry, and that was kind of, it's always when you're karting here, you always watch the European races, and you're like, wow, those guys are serious. And so obviously, I'd always wanted to go over there, but it's expensive for an American to fly and race over there constantly. They do, tons of testing, tons of racing. It's just pretty much next level in every way. And so winning this ticket was kind of the excuse that we needed
Okay.
to take the jump and try it out. Obviously, pretty nervous. It's a team we'd never raced with before on a track I'd never been to in a country I'd never been to. It was my first time outside of North America, so it was pretty nerve wracking. But I think that the atmosphere of the serious races over there are incredible. I honestly preferred it. It felt so much more professional, and the racing was so close that I was pretty shocked when I did as well as I did, because everybody told me I was going to go over there and get my butt kicked. But came in. I was second in my group in qualifying, and it was honestly practice
Wow.
didn't go that well, so I was a bit shocked that I did that well. But yeah, it was pretty cool. My first race, I started pole in a few heat races, so it was amazing.
And you talked about the atmosphere and the difference in the professionalism. I want you to, if you can you explain that in some detail? Because actually, it's the second time this week that I've had somebody tell me, even though they were talking more, F3 level, F4 level racing over there, but the difference in the intensity and the professionalism and the way that it's operated. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a visual on that and what was different and how it was more professional?
Yeah, well, it was at Le Mans, which the Le Mans karting circuit, which is
Okay,
on site at the famous circuit. So the facilities were a million times nicer than pretty much anywhere in the U.S. or
sure.
anywhere in the continent. The facilities were incredible. Just the staff, like the race directors, the stewards, all very professional. The corner workers were, I believe, like full time at this racetrack. They were, you know, they were once if there was a crash on track, it was gone in seconds. The carts were moved
Wow.
out of the way. The drivers were scooped away. I was unfortunate enough to experience that in a few heats, but just like the atmosphere, like I mean, they do this in some American races where you have to drop your fuel tank off so you can't mix anything with the fuel. Um, yeah, it was the team would take the engine every night and check it and rebuild it. We had multiple engines. It was in every level, pretty much any way you can think of, it was more professional.
Okay. It sounds like it was way more intense too. I mean, as a young driver, that
Yeah,
had to be both exciting and maybe a little bit nerve-wracking and scary too, because I mean it's a whole other level from what you were used to here.
yeah, I was very fortunate enough to have my coach at the time was actually French. So we were going to France to race here. So he went with us, helped us out with, pretty much everything, the language, the culture, the people. I met some of his drivers that he had in Europe, got to work with them. So it was like I kind of already had, friends and family over there, but,
Okay.
I'd never met them before. So it was actually fairly easy. I think without him, it would have been a lot more difficult because it would have just been me and my family, trying to get used to, a whole other country, a whole other team. So I think that helped a lot. But yeah, I think everybody we met was very friendly, which of course helps when you're not being pressured by anybody. So I think, yeah, I was nervous, but I think once I got through the first day or two, it was fairly easy.
So ninth out of 84. Now, I mean, that to me sounds extraordinary, especially for, where you were in your career versus where, where some of the racers you're running against who probably started at 5 were. But how does that get received over there by those drivers that this American driver comes in and, finishes in the top 10 first time out?
Oh, well, I don't think that they appreciated it too much, especially in the heats. Before any of that, in the heats, I got taken out twice.
Oh, so
3 out of the 5 heats I didn't finish. So I started the pre-final. I just barely qualified for the final because of that. So I started the pre-final, I think 32nd or 33rd, made it up to 14th, I think, and then made it up to 9th in the final. So I think after the heats, it was all right, but definitely maybe, I don't know if it was on purpose, but it was definitely more aggressive over there.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. Okay, so after that, we get to 2020. And of course, we all know that in 2020, COVID hits, the world stops, and nothing's really been the same since. But for you, 2020 marked both an opportunity and also a huge setback. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunity first and then the setback?
Yeah, well, I mean, the opportunity came at the end of the year. I got the opportunity to test an F4 car for the first time. I'd moved up to the senior categories in karting that year. So the next year in 2021, we were either going to, stay in karting one more year or make the jump to F4. And so we were lucky enough to get a test because the team I was running with, Crosslink Competition, was also ran an F4 and Formula Regional team. So, it was all in-house. So it was very easy to do, some of the same people that I worked with in karting. So really easy to, to link that there. And so, yeah, just got an opportunity to do a day in an F4 car. And I guess I did something right and was able to, sign a contract to race in 2021 with them.
Which is amazing. But you also had a huge setback that year with an accident. Talk a little bit about that, because when I heard the story of this originally from your dad, I mean, it's just unbelievable that you were able to come back as you did. Talk about from your perspective, start, at least give us the beginning of what happened. Where were you and what were you racing, and talk a little bit about the circumstances.
Yeah, so we were down in the Miami area. The karting season usually starts in January and February with a winter series that they do that down there when you can't really race anywhere else in the country. So we do that. So we just kind of stayed, not really any point coming home when we're going to be racing there 2 times a month for 2 months straight. So
sure.
We were just doing some testing between one of the 2 rounds, and I had a brake failure at the highest speed point on track. Went straight through the plastic barriers, the tire. I don't think there were tire barriers, but went through the chain link fence behind the barriers and ended up stopping about 50 yards away from the track finally. So I think about in that category we were probably doing 74, 75 at that point on track. So a pretty big hit, especially in a go-kart where you don't really have any protection from something like that. You're kind of supposed to fly away from it, but when you're just going straight through something, you kind of get dragged along. But
for sure,
I don't remember the day at all. So
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I want to pick it up from the crash, though, when we come back in our next segment and talk a little bit about the aftermath of that and the road to recovery here. We will be back with more of Ryan Shehan on the Tom Baker Show right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. As always, the show being brought to you by TrackTune, this segment being brought to you by Ultimate QM. If your son or daughter is looking to get into motorsports, quarter midget racing might be a good option for you. They have racing from local club racing to regional and national racing. And of course, even the NASCAR Youth Series for the quarter midgets now that runs at many of the NASCAR tracks in conjunction with NASCAR racing weekends. Great opportunity for the drivers and teams to see some NASCAR action and begin to build their network. Ultimate QM is the place to go for your quarter midget race car. They will not only sell you the car, they will help you with parts and service and coaching and all of the necessary knowledge that you need, setup advice to be fast and win races. There are numerous drivers winning races all over the country at Ultimate QMs every week. You can see some of them on the screen. Remember, winners win with Ultimate QM. Go visit them at ultimateqm.com. Ryan Shehan is our guest on the show this week. And at the end of the first segment, we were talking about a very bad life-threatening crash that Ryan had in 2020. And Ryan going through a chain link fence just sounds horrifying, especially at 70 miles an hour. Talk a little bit about what happened, okay, the impact. I know that you don't remember it firsthand, but I'm sure that you've heard the story third hand. Tell us a little bit about what happened after the crash and how you kind of went and began your road to recovery, because the injuries that you had were numerous.
Yeah, so I somehow stood up, according to some of the track workers, and my coach that I spoke about earlier. He was obviously there, and so he was the first person other than the corner workers that got to me, and so I was somehow standing up, kind of looking around, dazed. I think he like opened my visor, looked in my eyes, and had me squeeze his hands to make sure I wasn't, I didn't have any neurological or spinal issues. I was able to do that. And I think pretty much once I did that, I passed out. I was done. So they, called a helicopter. They life flighted me to a hospital, and it ended up having broken jaw, several burns, a brain bleed. So really not a good time. Had actually been with the fence. I'd actually been dragged over the exhaust, which is where the burns came from.
Oh, wow.
And I think the jaw was from the helmet strap, which the helmet luckily did a very good job at protecting me. No major issues other than the brain bleed, which eventually fixed itself. I do have one lingering issue from that, but it's not really a big deal or anything like that. So I was very lucky. And the helmet manufacturer, Stilo, actually took the helmet and inspected it after, just to see, if there were any fault points or anything like that.
Sure. Now, I understand from your dad that when you woke up in the hospital, you asked one question and then basically made a statement. Tell us what that was, because we can all look back and chuckle at it now, but obviously at the time.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember this part either. I don't remember the first few days in the hospital, but they told me when I first woke up after, I think it was a 2-day coma that they put me in. I asked when was the next race. Yeah, induced coma.
Yeah.
I asked when was the next race, and I said, well, it's in 2 weeks. That was the race that we were testing and preparing for. And I said, well, I'm effing doing it. And I said, well, no, you're effing not.
That was your mother responding to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think she had a tough time. Yeah. So she'd had probably a much tougher time than me mentally over this whole process. So
of course
she probably wasn't quite ready for me to be back in the seat yet. And physically, I definitely wasn't ready to be back yet. So, yeah, definitely did not end up doing that race.
Well, now, so obviously your parents supported you racing to begin with. A lot of times the dad is all for it, right? Because, he's the dad. And the mom sometimes a little hesitant. So was your mom 100% on board with the idea to begin with? Because if not, I'm assuming that's why she responded the way she did. She was probably hoping that you would make your retirement announcement right about then.
No, she's always been supportive. Even after that, she never really questioned that I would get back in the seat again.
Oh, okay.
She's one of my biggest fans. She goes to pretty much all the races. She wants to go to all the races. I know some teammates or friends that I've had whose moms either just aren't too interested in the racing or just don't want to go to all the races because there's a lot of sitting around for the parents. Too. Yeah, or they're too nervous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm very fortunate to have a mom who's 100% supportive and she wants to come to all the races.
Okay, so after you were told that you were not running the next race, take us through the road to recovery. I mean, talk about some of the things you had to go through and, how long of a time span. Give us some detail on what it took to get back to the track from this crash.
Yeah, so the 2-day induced in coma, I woke up. I think my jaw was wired shut because of the broken jaw. I had several, they always try cadaver skin on the burns before they do anything else. So I had that. I think I walked for the first time 5 days post-incident.
Oh, wow.
And then I was out of the hospital 7 days later. So considering where we went from day one, yeah, the initial outlook that they told my parents and my coach on, day one when I had just gotten back to the hospital, still had the brain bleed was, we don't know if he's ever going to drive again or walk again, let alone drive. And then eventually I think it got better a lot quicker than they thought. The brain bleed stopped. I kind of stabilized, and by the time I woke up, I think they knew I was going to be able to move and walk, and I think that it was maybe more of a mental game on if I was going to want to get in the seat again. But I was able to walk 5 days later, and I walked out by myself 7 days later. So a pretty quick recovery time in that aspect, but I think the overall recovery was a bit slower. 9 weeks total from the crash until I got in the seat again.
Still, that seems really quick. I guess in that aspect, you effing showed them, right? There was no question about it.
I think
you had a different time agenda than they had, right? You wanted to get back on the track.
Absolutely.
Desire to achieve, motivation can do great things for you, right?
Yeah, I think it helped that the whole time, like I said, we were in Florida, and we just stayed there. Even though I wasn't racing, we just stayed there for, the continuity of care. So I could keep the same doctors and all that. So we ended up going to the races because what else were we going to do for that time? So
Sure.
It didn't help that I was watching racing and, not able to do it. So pretty much as soon as I was okay to drive, I wanted to get back in the seat. So that was in late January, and by late March, I was driving again.
Incredible, really. And I'm sure age has a lot to do with that. Obviously, you recover much faster when you're younger than, when you're older, but also, like I said, motivation, determination, all those things, you had a desire to achieve something. So, where was your first race back? And what series, tell us, and what was it like leading up to that? Was there any trepidation? Was there any sense of, okay, I need to just sort of get my feet back under me, or was it just get in the car and go?
No, we'd done that. We did that the first test after, and then we did one more test.
Okay.
And those were both at the track that we were going to race at for the first time.
Okay.
And COVID had hit, so there weren't any big races. It was kind of just local stuff. So it was a track down in Houston that kind of became our home track at that point in time. So we just did a local club race. But because there were no other races, some pretty big karting names showed up from all around Texas, and there wasn't really any nervousness, and so we went out there and I won the race. So I think I kind of
unbelievable
rebounded fairly well.
First race back.
Yeah,
that's
amazing. It
was
a pretty good comeback in my opinion.
I would say. I don't know how
people
it gets
say
any
that
better.
Actually. Yeah, people say once I came back, I was a bit of a different driver. So maybe getting that close to death can make you not as nervous or something like that. But it does feel kind of different than before the crash.
In what way? I mean, is it confidence? Is it just wisdom and, a little bit more of a sense of, just making, not that the accident was your fault, but just making, decisions differently? I mean, what can you put your finger on what's different and what people were reacting to that made them say you're different?
I think, obviously when you have like a near-death experience, I think you always kind of open your eyes and you're like, wow, that was close. Well, you kind of have it's like I said, it's eye-opening, and you kind of look around and see, is this really what I want to do?
Okay.
I definitely thought that is like, wow, I could die doing this. And I pretty quickly came to the decision, like, I'm okay dying doing this. This is what I want to do. And I think that commitment might be what changed about me, is that I was like, I'm okay. I'm 100%, not that I wasn't committed to it before, but I think that getting over that hump and wanting to do it again, I think just kind of made me 101% committed to to racing.
So tell us about the rest of that season. You won your first race back. There's your peak, right? How many more races did you win? I mean, was there a moment when it kind of returned to normal and you struggled a little bit? How did the rest of that season go?
Yeah, I think it went fairly well. I won a couple more races that year, later in the year. And when national racing came back, it's kind of weird. I always forget that was still my first year in the senior categories, just because it felt so long. But I know did fairly well, a couple top 5s, top 10s pretty consistently, ended the year really well. They always have a big race in Vegas, and I did really well there. I think I qualified like 4th or 5th. And I have no clue where I finished in that one, but fairly well for my first year in seniors. And wanted to just carry that momentum into 2021 when we were, moving up into a car.
And in 2021, you did move up into a car. You moved up into USF4, which is kind of the first step on the US ladder, F4, then FR, which would be F3 anywhere else. And we're going to talk about all of that in the next segment, and also start to talk about the business part of what you're doing, because that's a very strong point for Ryan Shehan Racing. You've got a lot of stuff going off the track, so we'll start getting into that as well. We're going to be back with more with Ryan Shehan on the Tom Baker Show right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. We continue our conversation with Ryan Shehan, one of the top up-and-coming U.S. open wheel racers who's made a decision about 2025 that we'll get to in a bit. But we're trying to unpack Ryan the racer and Ryan the businessman and Ryan the individual. And we've talked about the crash that Ryan had in 2020 and his road to recovery, winning his first race back. And now, as we go into 2021, you're about to embark on your first year in a car in the USF4 series. Why USF4? And then talk a little bit about how that transition was out of the karts and what it was like to compete in that series.
Yeah, I think, the reason we chose USF4 was, like I said before, the team we were karting with already had that connection.
Okay.
And so it was kind of just the natural next step. It was also very cost effective compared to some other series at that level. So really all the signs were pointing toward that being our next step. It just made the most sense economically, career wise. It's also, it's on the FIA ladder to F1, which, is everyone's dream, is to race in F1. So
sure,
there weren't really any other, real alternatives for us. So that was just what we decided to do. And I think the transition from karting to cars can be tough depending on, who you are, what experience you have. I think I got up to speed fairly quickly. I'll be the first to admit in that first year, I struggled a bit, just with the weight of the big car. It's so much different compared to a go-kart, feeling the weight, rolling it through corners.
Sure.
But I think obviously, we raced it. I got to race with F1 for the first time, which was super cool at COTA. That's really a kind of a once in a lifetime experience, getting to be on track on the same weekend as COTA as F1 at COTA is incredible.
Well, it was also a home race for you because you're from Austin. So
yeah,
I'm assuming you had all kinds of family friends and probably a few new friends that just became your friends because you were going to race with F1 at COTA and they wanted to go see F1. So let's go watch Ryan race. Oh, by the way, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of our friends and family already go to F1 every year. It's a huge deal here in Austin. So
yeah,
pretty much everybody that can will go to it. It's definitely our biggest event of the year, purely based on numbers. Unfortunately, it was in 2021 when the F1 COVID restrictions were still pretty tight. So nobody was allowed in the support paddock with us. It was
Oh,
basically
okay.
5 people per driver.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
5 people per driver, and I had 2 mechanics and an engineer and my parents. So
Wow.
that was it. No
Well,
friends, no family. Yeah.
your parents got a lot of one-to-one time with the team anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to know
Yeah,
the inner workings of the
lots of
operation really
bonding
well.
time there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How did you do in that race?
I think I finished like 12th or 11th out of 30 something. They always
That's good.
get a massive amount of entries for when they're with F1, it just explodes
Oh,
with
sure.
entries.
Yeah,
Everybody, people who don't do the whole season, that's the one that they make sure that they do.
sure.
Because you're racing on an F1 weekend. So,
Well,
of course, you want to do that one.
of course, because they just know that Total Wolf is going to walk up if they do well with a contract to drive for Mercedes, right? That's put them in the pipeline.
Absolutely.
But seriously, it's a big stage, and having worked with a lot of younger racers, it's like I've seen drivers that in big stages they excel. They seem to elevate their performance, and then others that are the opposite. They get all nervous and overwhelmed by the moment, and then they make mistakes. But for being a rookie, that's a good run. And so in 2022, you actually won your first race. Talk about that. That must have felt good.
Yeah, that was as always a good feeling to win a race, but when it's your first, it feels a bit better.
Sure.
Yeah, we at the end of 2021, I think I kind of found my groove or just got comfortable in a car. We did some testing in the off season, and I think pretty quickly, I don't really know why or what happened, but it just kind of clicked with me, and I was kind of instantly, seconds faster. And so showed up to the first round and, was pretty quick, got my first podium in the first round. And then that eventually led to my first win. And I think we got 1 or 2 more wins that year. So I think a pretty monumental jump from 2021 to 2022.
For sure.
And so I think it was really important to just, keep that momentum going.
Well, and not only did you keep it going in that series, but you also got invited to go race in New Zealand. Talk about what that opportunity was, because that's pretty cool to be able to go over there and people don't realize how big a lot of different types of racing are over there, but New Zealand is a huge racing country.
Yeah, it was actually surprising to me how popular it was over there. Yeah. But yeah, I raced in the US. I raced with Crosslink Kiwi Motorsports, and the Kiwi side of that has their own team over in New Zealand.
There you go.
Run the Formula Regional Oceania Series over there, which is run in the New Zealand summer, which is our winter when there's not any other racing going on. So it's basically just like an off-season boot camp. It's 5 races in 5 weeks. So if you're anybody, you're down there doing that, preparing for the next season. And I was planning on moving up to Formula Regional that year, so it made sense for me to go down and get basically a whole season's worth of driving in 5 weeks, and pretty much the exact same car I was going to drive that year.
It's a huge advantage. It's kind of like here in America, you see some of the divisions that go to Florida in February and run what we call speed weeks. And that you can get 10 or 15 races, depending on what you're running. And you're in great racing shape coming into your point season, wherever it is in the country that you actually run during the year. So I can fully appreciate that. And you had a chance in 2023 to go back there and had a couple of more podiums. You did a really nice job with that opportunity, it sounds like.
Yeah, I had a few podiums. It was pretty similar to the the karting in Europe thing, where just the professionalism that Toyota puts into the series. They're a massive supporter of it. They're the title sponsor, so they take care of the drivers, they take care of the teams, the hospitality. It's it's a super professional setting. And so getting to do that and experience that, it was an incredible experience. And obviously the racing with all the people from around the world is incredible.
And I mean, you here in America, I mean, the FR America's Championship, you won the first two races, you podiumed in 13 out of 18, and you finished second for the season. That's a pretty incredible year, especially again, transitioning to the next level.
Yeah, I think it just proves how good that winter series is in New Zealand. Both me and the champion were racing in it. We were on different teams down there, and we ended up being on the same team back home. So that was a pretty interesting experience. But we got to become good friends and interacted well. And so it was we kind of shared that experience throughout the year, and I think it showed in the results that me and him were pretty clear the rest of the field. So I think it just showed how important it is to get that extra seat time, especially when you're moving up a category like that.
And this year in 2024, you started out and have had a tremendous season. Talk a little bit about what you've been able to accomplish this year. And then unfortunately, you aren't finishing the year, and you'll explain why, but you really have had a good racing year on the track.
Yeah, I think we started off, I think honestly, we started off I felt a bit rusty. This year we didn't go to New Zealand when some of my competitors and teammates did.
Yep.
Some of them were moving up from Formula 4, which they raced last year. Pretty much exactly the same thing I did last year. And so they came back, pretty well prepared, and I hadn't driven a car in about 4 or 5 months during the off season. So I honestly came back a bit rusty, but I think I brushed that off pretty quickly. Won my first race of the year at the first round, and then won 3 more races. And first round was at NOLA in New Orleans. Okay. So it's pretty much where the series always starts out. Pretty wide open track, so lots of room to run off. Let people get used to the car a bit. But I seem to do pretty well there. That's where I got my first F4 podium. It's where I got, I have 3 F4 or FR wins there. So maybe I have a knack for that track or something like that.
Sounds it. Sure does. So you were sitting second in points when you stopped racing?
No, right? I was in the lead by I think 23.
Okay. Yeah, you were leading
and a half points.
So talk about what happened.
I mean, pretty much it's as it always is in racing. It was budget, but I think it's a bit more than just don't have the money, can't race. It was we can probably funnel it together to make the next round, but we're going to be struggling to make the last 2 rounds, and then we're going to be sat in November kind of wondering what we're doing next year, and with no budget still have to work on that. And so we said make the tough decision where let's hang it up for the year, and let's take these 5 or 6 months and get a head start on 2025, which is what we've done.
Wow. Yeah, that had to be tough too, knowing that you were leading the points and on your way to possibly a series championship. But again, thinking big picture, which is one of your better qualities. And I want to start to talk about some of your off track, because first of all, you made a decision, and I don't know what you can tell us about the decision for next year, but tell us what you can, because you've kind of made a choice to make a switch a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, nothing's signed, nothing's official, but I think it's pretty clear to us that probably Europe will be our end goal next year, where we're aiming to head. It just kind of makes the most sense for what we want to do. Obviously, we've kind of hit the peak of the open wheel ladder, the FIA open wheel ladder here in the U.S. Obviously there's the IndyCar side with Pro 2000 and Indy Next, but those are a bit more expensive than kind of what we want to do, especially Indy Next, which it would be amazing to run, but it's hard to scoop up $1.2 or $1.5 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money
without much warning. Yeah, sure is. But I think all I can really say before anything is official is I think Europe will be where we aim for.
So making that decision then requires a lot of change, a lot of transition, a lot of conversation about things that you wouldn't have needed to worry about. And we're going to start to unpack some of that as we go into our final segment of the show and talk about that, but also all of the off-track business side of Ryan Shehan Racing that you've built up, because you've really got some pretty cool opportunities for people to get involved with you. And we want to talk about those as well. So we're going to be back with more of Ryan Shehan here on the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show, and we've got Ryan Shehan with us. Ryan is one of the top U.S. open wheel racers. Looks like right now for 2025, he's made the decision to head to Europe and compete over there. Not a lot final yet, but a lot of things in the works. So we'll have to get Ryan back on eventually as things become more clear for him in 2025. But let's start with, okay, you're going to go run in Europe. We talked earlier about the difference in karting from the U.S. to Europe. The difference in open wheel racing is just as, if not more drastic there than here. And of course, you're still young, early 20s. You're wanting to, go race in Europe, transitioning away from family, friends, all of that. What are you thinking about today as you sort of start that process in your mind of preparing yourself and your brand and all of that to go race over there?
Yeah, well, I've been very fortunate enough to work with several mechanics from Europe or mechanics who have experience in Europe. Engineers from Europe. I've been very fortunate that my engineer for the past 2 or 3 years has come from McLaren F1. He spent almost maybe over a decade there in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think even in Häkkinen's championship winning year, I believe he was on his car. So, no slouch that I've been working with. So very fortunate enough to work with him, worked with some other engineers during the time, also from Europe who've worked with European teams. So I think I kind of, understand the differences in style and teaching. Definitely very, to the point, basically showing you what you have to do and you have to go on track and do it, which honestly is what I prefer. I prefer to, they be straight up and honest with me about what I need to do. And, I just go and execute that.
All business for you. And that's what we want to transition to, because you've got quite a business off the track. You've got a lot of things that you're involved with. And I want to just try to hit each one of them. And if we leave out something, feel free to throw it in. The first thing I want to talk about, you started in 2021, and it's called Wingman Debriefs. What is that?
Yeah, that was something that we wanted to do to kind of, peek a little view into, kind of into my head during a race or something like that. We worked with the great guys over at Speed City Broadcasting here in Austin to look at some of my clips or onboards from the races from a race weekend and just kind of debrief, what I was thinking, why I did something, just basically like a race debrief, which we do after every session when we're at the track, and just breaking everything down, talking about, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Just to kind of share, a bit of behind the scenes with my racing.
So does that go to an exclusive list of fans and people that want it? You subscribe to that, or how does that work?
Those we just released to everybody. That was, I believe, on Vimeo. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it was free to access.
Okay, very nice. I like it. Now in 2022, partner Pathfinder programs go to market along with the Wingman. So talk a little bit about some of the programs that you have right now for fans and potential sponsors to get involved with Ryan Shehan Racing on a more up close and personal basis.
Yeah, well, the Pathfinder program was something we started kind of in conjunction with our nonprofit, Shehan Strong. Where we use my racing to help inspire disadvantaged youth, to follow their passion. Because I was very fortunate enough to find my passion at age 9, and so if I can help a kid find their passion and help them pursue it, then that's amazing to me. And I think obviously I'm very fortunate enough to do what I do. So if I can turn that around and help someone else, then it's incredible.
So we're not talking just about helping kids get into racing, or are we? Is it kind of open-ended? What is that? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's absolutely open-ended. It's whatever that the kids want to do. Usually we'll go out and speak to a group of kids and just kind of give my story. Obviously, basically what I said at the start of this podcast was I went out and found my passion at age 9, and I worked extremely hard to fulfill that. And so if they find something that they are incredibly passionate about and they put the work in to pursue it, then it could end up as a career path, or they could end up becoming a professional in it. Whatever it is, they can pursue that passion. They don't have to. They can pursue it at any time. Obviously, racing at 9 is a pretty good example that you can start young, and if you find it, then go for it.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the SAFE program that you have for investors, because I think this is really unique, and I know it's not unique in the industry because other racers have got similar things, but talk about this particular program and how it applies to you.
Yeah, so just to start out with, my dad isn't a Lawrence Stroll, doesn't have the $1 billion checkbook. Self-proclaimed from him, he'll say it. He'll say it too. So obviously we always have to come up with funding to go racing. And one of the ways that we've found to do that is, through investment, in me and my basically racing career. So people invest, and, should I make it to IndyCar, F1, or make a living in it in some other way, then they get a return. It's a fairly common way for people to fund their racing, and we found that it would be, it made sense for us to do.
Yeah, and I don't think many people, because I don't think a lot of parents, for example, I just don't think they understand the investment world enough to even know that there could be a program like this. But it makes sense, because instead of going out and asking sponsors to sponsor you, you can go out and find people to actually invest in you in a way that they're basically betting on your future, that if you get to a certain level where you're making a certain amount of income, that you then start to pay back that investment. And there's more to it than that, but that's the basic. And I think it's a great way to reach an audience of people that you probably wouldn't reach asking for sponsorship.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's, it's also a way to go towards individuals and not just companies.
Right.
Because if you go to an individual asking for sponsorship, then they can say, I don't really have anything to promote or
Right.
something like that. But if you come with an investment opportunity where there's a potential gain for them, then that's a much easier sell.
Now, if you, for those watching, if you go to Ryan Shehan Racing, SHEHAN, RyanShehan.com actually is the site, RyanShehan.com. That's one of the most amazing driver sites I've seen. And it's so comprehensive. You've got so much for people to look at, watch, and listen to, and all of that. But you've also got information on programs like this. What can you tell us, though, about the specifics of that SAFE program? How much does it cost? And what can you tell us about the specifics of once somebody invests? How does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, the SAFE in general, a simple agreement for future equity, is a pretty common thing for startups to do. And that's essentially what we are as a Ryan Shehan Racing as a startup. And so basically you can invest, you can buy shares in the program. You fill out some paperwork and it's pretty much as easy as that. It's like buying a stock in any other company. Nothing really special about it.
Okay, so I want to make sure we get to the other piece of you that I find just totally fascinating. You're also an insurance agent. Now, how does one get to be an insurance agent? Real estate, I guess, is the way I should say it. Yeah, it's real estate. Yeah. How does one get to be a real estate agent at your age, and how did that come up? Because they're again great source of revenue to pay for your racing with, if you can do well enough at that, and another way to bring people in.
Yeah, it's a lot of people are kind of dumbfounded when I say that I was a real estate agent at age 18. But yeah, one of my biggest supporters and sponsors are the King family, Mark King is the former president of Keller Williams,
okay.
The massive real estate agency. And so we came up with the idea kind of just out of nowhere. They said, you should get your license. I was like, okay, why? And I said, then you can get referrals. It's like, oh, okay. And so obviously I'm probably never going to be the guy to go and show a house or try to sell you on a house. That's just not the person I am. I'm not a salesman. Well, I kind of am a salesman.
I was going to say, I think that's the business
really
you're in.
Fit my personality to go out and try and sell a house. And so we focus basically only on referrals. So you come to us, if you want to buy a house in Orlando, Florida, you come to us, we go and find a Keller Williams agent in Florida, and they help you through the entire process, and we get a referral that helps fund my racing, and that's no extra cost to the buyer. It's just, standard practice in the real estate world is, if you refer someone, you get a percentage, and that's a pretty easy way for us to fund the racing while also, helping people out who want to buy or sell their home.
Another great way for you to build a whole entire separate network too, that, can become your fans, which is pretty cool. And there's a great video on Ryan's website that you can watch. Ryan spoke with Mr. King. He and his dad did a great interview about his career and all of that and the crash and everything. Just super nice man, he seems like. And what a great opportunity for you to be able to be involved in that. Okay, before we let you go, tell us where we can follow you, social media, website, all of that. Give us all of the information.
Yeah, I think Instagram is at Ryan Shehan Official. Twitter /X is at Ryan Shehan Race. Same on Facebook as Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Ryan Shehan Racing. Ryan Shehan Racing on YouTube, Ryan Shehan on TikTok, RyanShehan.com. Pretty much every social media site there is, we have a presence there. So search Ryan Shehan and we'll probably pop up.
Been so much fun to have you on tonight, and I've still got more questions. So that means we're going to have you back again soon. As we get closer to finalizing your European plans, we'll get you back on the show. Appreciate you coming on, Ryan, and all the best going forward with the plans for 25. I'm really excited to see where it takes you.
Yeah, I'll be watching my inbox for that invite later in the year. And thank you guys for having me.
You got it. That's Ryan Shehan, and that's going to wrap it up for this week's Tom Baker Show. For more exclusive content and stories, join us at steeringwheelnation.com and on our 24/7 streaming page on watchpowertubetv.com. Visit tracktune.live to check out how you can sign your track or series up so your teams and your fans can hear all the PA action through their phone or device. Check out ultimateqm.com for all the info on how to get your young ones started in quarter midget racing. Winners win with Ultimate QM. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Wheel Nation and Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn. You can check with me on LinkedIn as well, Tom Baker Media. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching.